Hey everybody, so I wanted to put together this video. This is really not a Bible study. This is more of a philosophical study. Um, if you haven't seen my testimony video, I'll put a link down at the bottom. But apologetics was something that for me was kind of necessary. It was I needed to have more support, if you will, for the truth of the Bible. And I believe many people today have that need as well. So this video focuses on apologetics, and which is basically defined as the defense of the Christian faith without necessarily the need of the Bible to do it. So apologetics focuses largely on scientific and historical and archaeological evidence rather than the Bible. The benefit, of course, is to a non-believer. If you're pointing out things in the Bible and they already don't believe your Bible, it's sort of a moot argument, right? So this is for those who are seeking truth. If you are looking for the truth, then I want to be able to help you find it here. If you are a passionate anti-Christian, and no matter what the truth is, you're still not going to believe in Christianity, this video is not going to be a help for you. So the title of it is if you can answer yes to these four questions, Christianity must be true. All right, I got this this outline from Dr. Frank Turek, and I'll talk a little bit about him more at the end of this, but he's great. So I'll get you some more information about that. But the first question is, does truth exist? All right, so this seems obvious, but for many people in academia, where they live in a bubble on a college campus, they can have these discussions about existentialism and is there such a thing as objective truth, and is all truth subject to the interpretation of the individual, and things like this. I would argue that that's a ridiculous notion, but let's talk about that a little further. So, does truth exist? If truth does not exist, then the Bible can't be true, right? But neither can any other book ever written by anyone, an atheist or anyone for that matter. So if truth does not exist, neither does a plumbing manual or a book by so-called free thinkers or whatever. If truth doesn't exist, it doesn't exist for anyone. The statement, truth does not exist, must be a false statement if there is, in fact, no truth, which would make the statement wrong. I know, right? It's ridiculous to even say it out loud, but people are taught this. So without truth, there would be no math, right? If 2 plus 2 did not equal 4 always, then we couldn't have engineering or even language for that matter. If I saw a dog and I said to you, that's a dog, and you didn't believe in truth, then you couldn't accept the fact that the definition of a four-legged canine is in fact a dog. So when someone asks what may be true for you, that may be true for you, but not for me, the natural response would be, is that true for everyone? Of course, if that is true for everyone, then that statement cannot be true on itself. What we're looking at here is the law of non-contradiction, right? When you make a truth claim like that, your claim has to be able to stand up to its own scrutiny. That's the law of non-contradiction. So, does truth exist? Of course it does. It's ridiculous to say that truth doesn't exist, so let's just move on. So the next question is, does God exist? All scientific evidence points to the universe having a beginning. According to the theory of general relativity, as proven by Einstein, space, time, and matter came into being all at the same time. Scientists refer to this as the Big Bang Theory, right? If that is true, then the cause of the universe must be beyond space, time, and matter, as it is a known scientific impossibility that anything can come from nothing. All right, I want to reiterate that. It is a known scientific impossibility that something can come from nothing. In addition, due to factors like the more than 100 data points that make life on Earth possible, from the speed of the rotation of the Earth to the tilt of the axis of the Earth to irreducible complexity. Irreducible complexity is like if you're sticking to a theory of evolution, for instance, you're going to have to explain in great detail how during evolution a lung can form at the same time as a kidney, because life can't function without a lung and a kidney. How does the eyeball form that has more than 1 million cells in it? It's a tough explanation at best. I would argue that the reason it's tough is because it's not true. Evolution is irreducible complexity on its own, I think, disproves evolution, but there's plenty of other evidence out there. There must be some level of intelligence associated with the formation or creation of the universe. For example, chaos cannot produce complexity. If someone held up a big, thick dictionary and told you that this book was created when a printing press exploded, you would tell them you're crazy, or you think that I'm crazy to believe you. That would be a ridiculous claim, and no one of even the simplest intelligence would believe you. You could walk out into a park or a mall or Walmart or anything and hold up a dictionary to them and say to them, this dictionary was created by the explosion of a printing press. However, that is exactly what the scientific community is trying to tell you when they claim that an unintelligent explosion created everything. It created the complexity of life. The perfection of the Earth as compared to every other planet that we've ever seen anywhere. That all of the data points that allow life to exist on Earth that don't exist on other planets, all from nothing. So every living thing on Earth has a unique DNA code. Humans, birds, trees, butterflies, beetles, dogs, they all have a unique DNA code. This code is 3.5 billion characters long in a 4-character alphabet that is a decipherable language. If you bleed on a microscopic slide and your DNA is scientifically broken down, right? And your DNA code is read, it will tell you things about your eye color, your hair color, your height, your skin color, your place of origin. It will tell you exactly how your kidneys are supposed to function in concert with your heart and lungs. It will tell you things about your pituitary glands. It is the code of life. Okay? To claim that or to believe that this code, that is in fact a language that is built into every living thing, came from an explosion, is silly. Okay? And I want to be respectful of those that are non-believers, in that you may only be exposed to whatever it is that you've been taught, right? But at some point, it's on you to step back and ask difficult questions like these. So this, does God exist? I would argue that it would be impossible for him not to exist, right? So truth obviously exists. I think that God has to exist. So the third question is, are miracles possible? Well, if God exists, miracles are possible, right? And even if God didn't exist, the Big Bang Theory, as it is accepted in the scientific community, is in fact a miracle, because it claims that everything was created from nothing. And I know that there's theories to help offset that by talking about alternative universes and alternative dimensions. All of those also continue to support the biblical account of the Creator. So at any rate, it is impossible for everything to come from nothing. If the first verse of the Bible is true, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth, then every verse after that is at the very least possible. So what that means is that many people will argue that the truth of the Bible they they will tend to have a problem with the miraculous claims in the Bible, right? But if the first verse of the Bible is true, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, then a floating axe handle, or a man kept alive in a whale for 3 days, or a talking donkey, all of these things are not only are possible, but they're not even difficult for the creator of the universe. It wouldn't even dim the lights in heaven, right, for any of this stuff to be possible. So are miracles possible? If God exists, of course miracles are possible. So here's where it gets good. Is the New Testament true? So if truth exists and God exists and miracles are possible, then we now have a solid foundation to investigate the New Testament, right? Those three questions in and of themselves don't verify the truth of the New Testament, but it gives you enough solid ground to stand on to go and seek out truth. If the theory of general relativity is accurate, as is accepted by the scientific community, then the Creator must not only be outside of space, outside of time, and immaterial, he must also be personal to provide this planet for us that was perfectly suited for us to live. He must be unbelievably powerful to create everything: stars, planets, solar systems, and of course all of the complexities just here on our planet. He must be a loving God, because love is clearly evident in humanity. You can observe it in the wild. There are animals in the animal kingdom that mate for life. So if the Creator is outside of space, time, and immaterial, he must also be personal, powerful, and loving. All of this supports a monotheistic God, right? There are three primary religions that claim a monotheistic God. Interestingly, they all came from descendants of Abraham: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The New Testament could not exist without first having the Old Testament, which is in fact the Torah and the Tanakh of the Jewish people. They feverishly guarded these texts and these scrolls for thousands of years, including the 400 years from the last book in the Tanakh until the birth of Christ. What makes that significant is that the Jewish people do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. And yet the entire Old Testament is the story of the bloodline of the Messiah coming up through the Jewish heritage, right? So it's significant that the reason that this is significant is because the very people that will deny Christ as the Messiah are the ones that are upholding the historical accuracy of the Old Testament, which is the foundation for the New Testament, which is the document of the coming Messiah. So this Old Testament not only prophesies about the coming Messiah, and was fulfilled completely by Jesus. Everything that the Old Testament said about the coming Messiah, Jesus fulfilled. But also the Old Testament prophesied that the Jewish people would in fact reject the Messiah, which of course they did. They crucified him. So Islam recognizes that Jesus was real. They call him Isa, but it's Jesus, the son of Mary. And they also recognize that he walked the earth. Where it parts with the biblical account is the Quran disputes that he was, number one, the Son of God, or that, number two, he was even crucified at all. So there's a few problems with the Muslim depiction of the actual Jesus, right? First, the evidence for the crucifixion of Jesus is substantial. In fact, there's no credible proof that he was not crucified. Forgive me, I'm not an expert on the Quran or on Islam. My understanding is that they believe that there was a switcheroo at the last minute where Jesus was being flogged, and at some point somebody stepped into his place and was actually crucified in his place. that is forensically disproven. It is well documented that Jesus was in fact crucified. Um, the he died. Um, Forensically, there's a book that I think is worth mentioning. I'll have a link to it at the end of the video. It's called The Case for Christ, and it's by Lee Strobel. Lee Strobel was a um, investigative journalist that worked for the Chicago Tribune. He was a passionate, outspoken atheist. He was a firm, staunch believer in nothingness. Right. So he set out. His wife became a believer in Jesus, and he became so angry and incensed at this that he set out on a mission to disprove Christianity. Um, for those of you that are younger, you may not really understand investigative journalism because it's basically dead now. But years ago, there was a level of respect to journalism for digging into a story. Really digging in and pulling back the layers and finding the truth. Um, that really doesn't exist anymore, but this was in the early '80s when he chose to look into this. I would really encourage you to read his book. It's called The Case for Christ. It is um, it is more compelling to me for a passionate non-believer to come to faith and belief than for someone who grew up in the church to tell you about their religion. I think it makes a stronger point to me. But all sorts of very fine details are enclosed in that book. I'm not going to get into it here. Um, but Jesus was crucified, he died, he rose 3 days later. He was seen by more than 500 witnesses over the course of 40 days. There are some who dispute this claim by stating that, oh, it was a hallucination or people were imagining things. 500 people don't imagine the same thing. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I would encourage you to check out that book. Second, while Jesus was here, he claimed to be the Son of God. In fact, the Messiah that was spoken of in the Old Testament. The position of Islam is that he was not the Son of God, but in fact he was a prophet and he was generally a good man. Okay. It seems to me incomprehensible that a man claiming to be the Son of God could be anything other than who he says he is or a raving lunatic. The position of Islam in this middle ground that no, he wasn't the Son of God, he was actually a prophet and he was a good man, but he wasn't the Son of God. Even though he walked around performing miracles and claiming to be the Son of God, I I find it to be a blasphemous claim if what they're saying is true. Either someone is the Son of God when they claim to be, or they must be cuckoo, right? So finally, the Quran was written by one man 700 years after the resurrection of Jesus. In the Quran, it claims that, quote, the book, which is a reference to the 66 books of the Bible, the known Old and New Testament combined. The Quran claims that it's true and important historical document. However, the Quran itself contradicts the Bible in many different ways. So, is the New Testament true? Islam could be true, or Christianity could be true, but they contradict each other, so they can't both be true. All right. So again, from the angle of Christianity, we have more original manuscripts for the 66 books of the Bible than any other book in history. Over 24,000 of them. So when you compare them to each other, in fact, they differ by less than 3%. And according to theologians and scholars, the differences are of no theological significance, so it's basically irrelevant. What that means is that it is a preserved document. Okay, that's important for those who claim that it was written by religious zealots and it was all made up, and that theory doesn't hold water either. So while there are many who have studied the historical claims of the Bible, none of them have been disproven. In fact, every couple of years there's a new discovery that serves to further support the claims of the Bible. Like the Dead Sea Scrolls is a big one that I guess that was about 30 years ago, but that was a huge discovery. There is plenty of evidence that supports the exodus of the Jews out of Egypt, and so forth. On and on and on it goes. So, is the New Testament true? I mean, you decide for yourself. I would encourage you. The purpose of this video is not to dig deep and peel back the layers. I just want to make you think. I just want to make you stop and think about, if you are a believer in evolution, stop and ask yourself some of the tough questions. Watch a nature show, for goodness sakes, and explain to yourself how a monarch butterfly changes its migratory patterns every 5th year. I mean, it's some of the stuff that explain to yourself how amoeba have a spinning tail that spins like a motor. There are some impossibilities in nature based on the evolutionary theory that I mentioned Dr. Frank Turek in the beginning of this. He wrote the book, or he was co-writer of the book, I guess, with Norman Geisler. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. I would encourage everyone that has trouble with their faith because of what the world has told you about evolution and scientific theory and these sorts of things. I would really encourage you to read this book. If nothing else, it will give you another angle to look at the truth of the world around you. This is not a Bible study. It's not about getting close to Jesus. If you want to know Jesus, this is not the way. But what it does do is it will lay the foundation for you to be able to want to know Jesus. And that's really what it should be about. So in the links below, I'll have a click-through link to the I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, and also for the case for Christ. Those links go to Amazon. It does support the ministry if you buy the books from those links, but buy them anywhere. I mean, you don't have to buy it from these links, but I would encourage you. Also, The Case for Christ, there was a movie made about that book, and it's on Netflix. So if you want to just, instead of investing the money in a book and the time to read a book, if you just want to invest 2 hours of your time and watch the movie, that would be a good start. I mean, that alone, it's a good movie, actually. So that alone, I think, is worth looking into if you're truly seeking truth. Again, as I said in the beginning, if you're not interested in truth, and the question asked frequently is, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? If your answer to that question is no, then you know that you're not seeking truth. I mean, you're seeking support for your position or something different. So what I would say to all of you is that this video is made with love in my heart. I want you to seek the truth. Be willing to seek the truth wherever that truth will take you. It may destroy some sacred cows that you have. It may destroy your own religion. Maybe you're not an atheist. Maybe you grew up in another religion, Buddhist or Islam or something like that. Even Judaism is just incomplete Christianity, right? Judaism is in complete support of the Old Testament. They simply reject the New Testament. So again, seek the truth. That's my plea to you today. I wish you blessings. If you want to know Jesus on a personal level, there's a link below to go to our website for those seeking to know Jesus, and I would encourage you to check it out. Thanks for your time. Peace be with you, and love you all. Have a great day.